you looking for storage solutions for your craft room or your office, wherever you keep all your bits and pieces? It is so easy for them to get out of control and get knotted up in a mess, lost. So I think it's about time that I sorted out some serious storage for my craft room. They're all easy, they're all quick, and they're all very reasonable. A lot of things are upcycled or bits of cardboard. You don't need to spend a fortune to have wonderful storage ideas for your workspace, whatever you do in it. Right, no time for chatting. Let's get on with crafting. Have you got lace, yarn, bits of cord, string, twine that are just unmanageable, uncontrollable, and in your drawer making a right mess? There's a solution to this that you can do that will look absolutely lovely, especially if you do lots of these and put them on the shelf. So let's get stuck in and see how we make something that will make this much neater. You'll need 2 wood rounds. Mine have got holes in. You can fill these with a little bit of filler if you're feeling efficient. As usual, I'm rushing, so I'm just going to leave the hole there. Get yourself a piece of wood that is slightly wider than whatever it is you're going to be using. Or if you're going to be using something like twine, you can make it whatever length you want it to be. I think this one's pretty good, so I'm not going to have to cut it. Got this little peg here. Now, I like the rustic look. So now I'm going to need to find the centre of my spool. Not always where the centre little blob of the wood is. So let's give it a little measure to see. This only has to be rough. It's about 8-ish. So if I put a little dot at 4, and then about 4 this way, about there I think is going to be central. With a little blob of wood glue in the centre. Around the edge of your little piece of dowel or stick or twig, whatever it is. This is just a piece of twig. I picked this up on a beach. It's a bit of driftwood. Pop it over the top so that the hot glue goes around the outside of the little bit of wood glue that's in the middle, if you see what I mean. And then do exactly the same on the other side. Find your rough centre. You can do this by getting a piece of paper, cutting it out to the right size, folding it into 4, and then the centre of the paper is where the centre of this would be. But I'm just doing it this way. Near enough is good enough because it's quite rustic. It's not as if I got perfect circles of wood. If you did have perfect circles of wood, you'd have to be more accurate, but it would also be easier to be more accurate. So a little bit of wood glue, a little bit of hot glue around the edge of that, not too much. Pop it over the wood glue. And you've got yourself a spool, which you can stain if you want to. You can put like one of these antique waxes, something like that on. I could do, but I think I like the rustic look. Plus, I think it would possibly come on to my fabric and spoil it if I added any colouring onto it. So I'm going to stick with this. And now you can wind your lace or whatever it is around your spool, which is very therapeutic. If you make yourself lots of spools, you can settle down in front of the TV or just in a quiet evening and get this rolled round and around, and it really is quite pleasurable. And depending what you want the finished look to be, you can get some twine, pop it around the outside, and tie yourself just a little knot, a little tiny bow. You don't even have to make a proper bow. Do just a scruffy looking bow. Well, not scruffy, a sort of country looking, casual farmhouse looking bow like that. Or you can just, if you wanted to, take a pin and pop it in the edge to stop it unrolling. But I like that look. So there we go, a quick and easy way to store your lace. And can you imagine a whole row of these, even in various sizes, if you wanted to, or make them all the same size, and then you could put 2 different lots of lace on the same spindle if you wanted to. But I just think that is a wonderful way of storing your lace, and it looks so good. Look at that. Well, that was quick, that was easy, and I think very effective. Need somewhere to put your string. Are you always finding it's rolling off the table or falling down behind your desk? If you've got space behind your desk, then there is an answer. And I got this piece of, well, it's a plaque sort of thing. I got this really cheaply. There was a store that was selling off everything. I think I had 4 of these for £1. And I'm going to do something to change it up. I need to take the hanger off the back because I need this to be perfectly flat. This is going to be a stand or a plinth or whatever you want to call it. Don't forget, it's always worth hanging on to all these little bits of hardware. You never know when they'll come in handy. And this says, collect moments, not things. Right, now I'm going to cover this with some of this burlap paper that I got. So out with my glue stick, if I can find it. I always like to find a nice straight edge to go on one side, and it saves me trimming that one side. So now I've only got 3 sides to trim. Use the craft knife to trim around the edge. It's quite easy if you turn it upside down. You've got a straight edge to lean against, which is the actual plinth. This has got a map on it, which I don't think is that bad, but just in case your piece of wood hasn't got that, I'm just going to show you an idea in that we can put some burlap around there to tie it in with the top. I know it's not a perfect match in burlap colour, but it's near enough. Cover the side. Add the burlap. And now this is going to get potentially very messy. I've got this little bottle top that is the perfect size for the upright I'm going to use to store my twine on. But it was red, so I painted it brown and it hasn't dried yet. But you know me, undeterred by things being wet, I'm going to carry on using this wet. I think I've missed a bit. I'll need to top that up later. So pop my string on there, get a pen and mark the centre. I'm going to use my drill and drill a little hole. Then I'm going to drill a little hole in the centre of my bottle lid. It's not very central, but it'll do. Now I'm going to pop that over the hole, and then that little screw that I took out of the top, I'm going to pop into the hole through the bottle lid and screw the lid into place. Now I've got this tube that I'm going to pop over into this to stop it wobbling, but first I think I'm going to put something on this to brighten it up a bit so it doesn't look quite so much like a plain paper tube or cardboard tube. To brighten the tube up, I've got myself another piece of this wallpaper, and I'm going to cover this with Pritt Stick or whatever this is, Scotch. It's funny, isn't it, how the name Pritt Stick sticks? It does over here because it was the first glue stick we had in the UK. So lots of people still call them Pritt Sticks. A bit like we call any vacuum a Hoover. And then roll that up around your piece of cardboard or your cardboard tube. And there, that's much prettier, isn't it? And then that is going to be glued into there. So I'm going to need, obviously, some hot glue. Don't know how well it's going to stick with all this wet paint, but we'll find out. Pop loads in, more than I need to, just to be sure. And on that goes. And now, in a feat never attempted before by somebody like me who's very clumsy, I'm going to try altering this. It makes a nice top on the pole, but it doesn't have that nasty screw. Now, if I take the screw off, it's going to keep falling off. So I've decided that to cover the screw, I've got all these little nylon washers that came off the Abacussi letter thing. So I'm going to try, I don't know how successful I'll be, I'm going to try putting them on here in a straight line. I would say it could be a challenge, but I know it's going to be a challenge, definitely. I like to use what I have. I could have gone out and bought some spacer or something that would have been the perfect size, but where's the fun in that? So far so good, it's only partially wonky. So I've got this shape, and now just to be absolutely sure that nobody can hurt themselves on that spike, although they'd have to work really hard if they wanted to. A little bit of glue there. Put on a pretty button. I'm going to put it plain side out though. I think it'll match better. Like that. Right, let's see if my theory worked. So now I can put my string over there, and then, complete with glue strings, Pop that in there. Oh, yes, look at that. It doesn't look very straight from there. There, now that looks straighter. But the problem you've got is how are you going to cut your string? So I got this lovely little galvanised flower pot. And I've been wondering what to do with these. I got quite a few of them at a very reasonable price. So I thought it would be a good idea to glue this on, decide which way it'll probably be viewed. I would imagine if I was using it, it would be that way. So I'm going to put the seam away from there. And then I'm going to put loads of hot glue along the bottom. Oh, just realised how deep the bottom of this is. It's going to be a challenge. Like that. And then pop that into place there. And now I've got somewhere to keep scissors. Also, a few other little things if I wanted to put a ruler in, and a bone folder, and a pokey thingy. Look at that. So a perfect piece of storage for your home office or your desktop, whatever. You can even make one of these to take into work with you if you're fed up of losing your bits and pieces and your string. And that was a lot of fun to make. This cheap and easy storage container, I've got a shoebox. It's got a lid. You will need the lid, or you can use a different piece of cardboard if you want to. You need to measure halfway across the base of the box and then mark yourself out a triangle on both sides and then cut them out. You do need to be quite accurate when you do this because otherwise it won't sit properly. And this is what you've got. So you fold it in half like this, and that is the basis for your storage container. But you need something to block the ends, and this is where the lid comes in handy. If you hold the lid onto the bottom of one side and mark where these angles come down and then directly across the top there, and then you cut that shape out. Now I like to mark these left and right. The left bottom, the left side, the right bottom, the right side, because there can be a little bit of discrepancy in them. And that way then you know you've got the perfect fit, because then you go and do exactly the same on the other side and you'll have two bits that look virtually the same and you won't know which is which. I know, I've done it many times. Now you can see here just how important it is to be accurate. That side lines up perfectly. This side doesn't. It's a little bit out, just a tiny bit, but it does make a difference. So try not to do that if you can help it. Go around the edge of one half with some glue. And then close this up and give it a good push. Now get your right bit for your right side. That's a right. And that's a left. And this time I'm going to put glue all around the inside of this container. On the lip. Make sure you've got some right at the point as well. Make sure it sticks on nicely. And then on it goes. Push it into place. And you can either hold it or you can get out a clip and clip it on. And then get on with the other side. And it's exactly the same thing. A little bit of glue and pop it into place. And this is what you got. If you find that you got something, if you find that your cuts are not perfect, just grab your craft knife or your scissors and trim them off. And then if you want to, this is purely optional, you can smooth off the edges with your sander. Or a bit of sanding paper. That one's sticking up a bit, so I'm just going to give it a bit of a rub. Now comes a creative choice. Do you want to cover this with paint? Which isn't a good idea because it's got lots of different layers of cardboard on, but you can cover it with something else and then paint it. Or you can put some coloured papers on, some coloured card. You can completely cover it in stickers if you wanted to. I'm going to use this burlap wallpaper. I picked this up really cheaply from a car boot sale. Using hot glue, I'm going to cover the box with this burlap, and then we'll get on with the interior. If you're using a thicker type cover, I like to edge it here, and that way then there'll be a smoother overlap when you come to the other side. Push it into place and go all the way around. And then I trim it off along the edges. And then you notice all the little bits that are not quite stuck tight to the edges. So pop in a little bit more glue and just push them into place. Now measure the inside of your box, and mine is 6 inches. Sorry if you can hear the noise, the rain outside is absolutely terrible. Then again, I always seem to say that because it's always raining in Wales. It just feels like that. This year has been a very wet year. Now I've cut myself a strip that's 15 centimetres wide, which will fit in this way, and 11 centimetres wide that will fit in this way. So first thing I want to do is put the sides on. Here, 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 and here. Sounds like one of those aeroplane messages. The exits are here, 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 and here. Now I'm going to take my biggest piece of this burlap. Now if you're using paper, this may be so much easier to do this in sections like we did the side, but because this has got quite a flexible fabric feel to it, I think I'm going to be able to do it in one. So I fold over halfway with a nice firm fold, and then pop it inside with the fold over the top here, and you can see it already makes a really nice edge. Check it's going to be okay. And then out with the hot glue and glue this in section by section. I really wouldn't recommend you try to glue the whole thing because 1, your hot glue will go cold before you get there, and 2, everything will stick to everything before it's in the right place. So plenty of hot glue, but only on the one side, the one section. Push it into place. And then you've got time to make sure that it is exactly where you want it to be. It's not wandering off, being square. And I'm going to get the scissors and just run along the edge to give it a nice crisp corner. And then onto the bottom. It's only really at the edges of the bottom you need to glue. You don't need to put too much on. And then when you're happy with that, out with the scissors or something and just give it a little bit of a run down that edge as well. And then finally up here. Be warned, this does use a lot of glue. You could glue this on with something like Mod Podge. I did get my Mod Podge ready, but it's going to be such a slow process drying. I thought, I think I'll go for glue gun. And then pick up the other side. Chop it off. I've got several scissors on the go because these big ones don't like cutting too near the edge, so I've got a small one for extra fine trimming. And then do exactly the same with the other side. And now it's nicely lined. But it looks a mess, doesn't it? And that's where my next plan comes into action, because I've got this. This is a piece of rope I've had, or twine, off another project. You can see bits of glue still on it, but I'm going to take these pieces apart because this is an ideal width, using one of the plies to cover the joins. Now I pull it apart, but it will twist, so I'm going to hang this down over my edge of my desk and pull. And it's a lot easier, otherwise it takes forever to unroll. And there we go. Perfect for the job. So now decide where you want the join to be, the least important place to you. You may find you want the top to be nice and smooth. You may find that you want it smooth along the side. I think I'm going for a back corner join. There. Because it'll be facing the back at some point. Whether it's on a shelf or on my desk, there'll always be something against the wall, and that's the most likely place to be, is in a corner. Don't glue too much ahead. As usual, you have to be careful with hot glue because it cools down and then you've just got a big lump of cold glue instead of a sticky surface to stick your edge into. You could use yarn for this. You could use some rolled up fabric if you wanted to. You could use lace. You could use bias binding. Whatever you fancy, whatever suits your craft room or whatever you're using this for. If you're using it in the bathroom, as a bathroom caddy for soaps, things like that, then get it to match your bathroom. This is really adaptable. You can use this for just about anything. You could even use it for down in a shed or for keeping your seeds in, down in your greenhouse. Whatever you need storage for, this will be perfect. On the bottom, I'm going to put, because the bottom isn't very pretty, I'm going to put some of this cork, which will, 1, stop it scratching any surface, and 2, just make it look a little bit more finished and professional. And if you're a perfectionist, you may want to stick some extra cardboard on here to make sure it's level before you put this on. You know me, I'm very casual and easygoing with my crafts. Should point out, one of the problems if you split these pieces of twine into the separate plies is they are wiggly. So when you put them on, they like to wiggle themselves. So if you can take more time and put a bit of tension on all the way around and hold it till it's set, you won't have this wiggly effect, but it's not a problem for me. So now I've got this piece of leather. I got it off. I'm slowly dissecting a pair of old leather boots. So I've cut this piece of strap, and this is going to be an attachment on the top. So I need to find the central mark on this, which is about 3 inches. Put a little dot about 1 inch down. You need to make a hole. I'm going to use my Crocodile Big Bite. Make a hole. Then I want to make a hole in this little piece of leather. It's amazing what this big bite will actually cut through. Like that. And now I've got 2 of these brads. Oh, sorry, I'm covered in hot glue, look at me. I'm going to put this brad through the hole. From the outside in, get it the right way. In through the hole of the box. Out through the other hole, and then open the brads up a bit, but not completely. Chop a bit of the ends off and then open them out completely so they're not so big. And then cut the ends off this one. I've got one that'll match the other side, looks like a screw like the one on the other side. Chop these bits off and then glue this screw brad onto this side. It's easier to put the glue on where you want it to go than actually on the brad because it's so small. I think I've overdone that, so we'll have a little glue split, but never mind. Well, that wasn't too bad. And now you've got yourself a handy little carrying handle on your handy little storage tub that you can put anything in. You can put your tub of glue sticks in, and a tub of Mod Podge, and oh, what about the pliers, the glue stick. Put my wood glue in as well. Whatever you fancy, whatever you need, you can fill this with fabric or whatever. And then it'll slide onto a shelf or slide off. You can leave it on your desk when you're working on it and pop it back on the shelf when you're finished because you've got your handy dandy handle. If you're enjoying this so far, don't forget to subscribe before you go. Do it now, because if you're anything like me, you'll forget by the end of the video, because there are lots more crafting ideas coming up throughout the next year. 2024 is going to be such fun. I really would love you to come along on the journey with me. Right, back to crafting. I've got another washi storage idea for you. Now, I know not everybody can get hold of one of these, but if you look in the thrift stores or charity shops in the moment, these are not worth anything on eBay, which is a good thing because people don't buy them. So they get left behind. Nobody wants them. So I'm going to turn it into a washi tape holder. The first thing you need to do is drill out the little end here. They had little lugs in that were glued in, and I had a bit of a disaster. Look at the state on that. I slipped. I drilled it. I made a terrible mess. But I'm sure you won't do that if you get one of these. So when you've done that, you can start to take out your dowels. And everything drops off. And you can see where we're going with this, can't you? Do that with every rod. Well, I meant to show you. I paid £1 for this in the thrift store or charity shop. If you want to keep this as close to the original design as possible, you can learn the alphabet on. I'm just going to very lightly sand it. I would recommend you use a mask for this because I don't know if there's any lead in this. It depends when this was made. As you can see, that didn't come off quite as well as I was hoping, so I'm going to get some washi tape. I'm going to mask off just this piece, and then I'm going to paint it up with some, I've got some emulsion paint, and I'm going to pop some talc into it so that it looks a little bit like chalk paint and it'll dry faster. Just cover the bit you don't want paint getting on, unless you've got an extremely steady hand, which I haven't. I can pretty much guarantee that even with washi tape on, I will still get it everywhere. Add some talc into my little tester pot of emulsion. Get it everywhere. Look at that for a spectacular mess. I am very talented at making a mess. Oh yes, I've made a fabulous mess. I've just tipped all my paint onto my desktop. So I'm going to use the blob off the desktop and paint it over. I'm not sure if this is the official way to turn any paint into a sort of chalk paint, but I just decided to put some chalky type substance in. And I always use talc. And I find it does a pretty good job. It's never quite as good as if you buy a proper chalk paint, but it's near enough. And if you buy a really cheap chalk paint, sometimes this is better. So while I was waiting for the paint to dry, I replaced this little tie that was on here. It was a piece of old string. It did look very vintage if I show you here, but it's already snapped once, so it needed renewing. So I replaced it with a piece of twine. Now this is virtually dry. I know it's not completely dry, but when do I ever leave things dry completely? So we'll take the tape off. And now I thought, in keeping with the fun of this element, we could have put on some really silly letters and put washi with those. Let me know what you would have preferred. I was tempted, very tempted by that, but I'm also tempted by using these vintage Scrabble tiles. And I think for a more grown-up type surroundings, then these would be better. So it all depends what you want to do, really. So I think I'm going to go for these. So let's make sure they're going to fit on. Where's my H gone? I've lost an H. Oh, I've emptied all my tiles out and I saw it. It slipped up over the top of the desk. So we want washi. And then tape. And I think I'm going to draw them all sort of dotted about. I don't want them in a straight line. I'm going to do a fun look. So I'll start right over there, tight, because I know I'm going to run out of room otherwise. I know you may be thinking, well, obviously it's washi tape, you'll be able to see it. Well, you know it's washi tape, I know it's washi tape, and anybody coming into your studio will know it's washi tape. But this is more fun, isn't it? You could just put a bow on the top or some buttons or any decoration you want. I'd always recommend the second word you work backwards from the edge, otherwise you could end up going too close to the edge or not far enough away from the edge. Ooh, these are very, very close. They'll be okay. So now, ignoring my pile of tiles, I'm not putting those back into my jar again at the moment. Oh, I've just realised, look at that. I could have used those and just put washi. Now that would have really been fun. But if I take those off, then I'm going to spoil it. What am I going to do? I think I'll leave it as it is. I quite like that look anyway, and I've got these blocks for the next time. So now it's just a matter of getting some washi tape. Pop your rod back in, pop some washi tapes on. And you can see the effect of that. And because it's got this stand on it, you can stand this up, and how useful is that? So keep an eye out for something like this. And if you can't get something like this, you could also use a picture frame if you were very technically minded. You could drill holes and put some doweling through the picture frame and then just add a leg on the back, something to make it stand up so it doesn't fall over, or just screw it to the wall. This next storage solution for your craft room or any other room in the house, then take yourself a book. I've got this book and I'm going to cut out all the centre of the book. If you're worried about using value books for this, I get all mine from the cheap shop where nobody wants them anymore. The next place they go is to the recycling and being pulped, so I don't feel bad about cutting these books up. Use your knife and cut out everything in the middle of the book, like that. Now I've got some balsa wood here. You can use a thicker wood if you want to. You can even do cardboard, get a couple of layers, paint it with a wood effect or just plain white, and you've got yourself the size of your box for your book. So check that this is going to be the right size for the spine. We have a look. This fits perfectly. My book is actually 24 centimetres long, but I'm going to cut this at 23 centimetres. And now you can see that comes in slightly from the edge, which is where you want it to be, because you've always got this little lip left on a book, and I just think it leaves a nicer finish than if you just turn it into a straight box. So you need two pieces like this. Measure it off on your balsa wood from the last piece, but then use a nice solid straight edge, otherwise you will munch into your original cutting of balsa wood. It's far too soft to use as a straight edge. And now, if these are put in place, you need to measure how much you need between those for your side pieces. and measure. It's about 14 centimetres, so I need two 14-centimetre pieces. And now before I assemble the box, I want to cover this spine. So I need a piece of fabric or whatever, 5 centimetres by 23.5 centimetres. There we go, and that gives it a little bit more body, a little bit more solid of an edge so it doesn't collapse and go all floppy. And next we need to deal with these pieces of wood. Now I thought they'd look nice with a little bit of wood stain on them. Not a lot, just a little, just to make them look a little bit more like really, really aged book pages. When you're doing this, don't get any on the edges where you'll be gluing, because otherwise you'll end up the glue won't stick. Because I find I get a lot of trouble getting glue to stick where there has been any sort of wax type material. One problem I seem to have with balsa wood too is that it sucks in so much of this antique wax that you get it very blotchy, which suits this project, but be careful when you're using it. It can be a bit of a pain in the neck. So now comes the fiddly bit. It's not difficult, it's fiddly. Right down the edge there, on the edge of the cover, with some hot glue. And then pop on, ooh, with the scruffy side facing out, your piece of balsa wood. Add on another piece of balsa wood. If you're worried about doing this extremely accurately, then you can always draw a line to know exactly where to put your hot glue. You know me. Near enough is good enough. On this last piece, I'm going to put the glue onto the balsa wood. Very fiddly. Which is why I don't like doing it usually. Like that. Carefully pop it into place. And then a little bit of glue there. Give it a better join, like that. Make sure it's in line. And then when that's cool, try put a little blob of glue on each corner. Just hold it nicer. Inside the gap. Pop it into place, and when it's nearly cool, not completely cool, but not hot, give it a wipe up with your finger, or preferably with your finger protector on, so that you don't burn yourself. And then out with your sanding block. And level up the edges. I've had a change of mind. I'm going to take this back off because I think it's going to look better if this is actually glued to the box. And had I thought of that sooner, I wouldn't have put all this wax on this piece. So I'm going to put loads of glue on this just to be sure. Give it some fighting chance of actually staying in place. Now, bring your cover up and over and push it down firmly onto the box, like that. And now you've got some options. You can even cover your whole book with something, but I don't want to. If you want to do, you could put something like this on the edge. I just fancy doing something a little bit different to this book. Make it stand out a bit. So I'm going to measure how long I need to be. And I've got this piece of music, and I love this. Flows the mighty river with golden whispered. It's a little bit mysterious, isn't it? So I'm going to tear along that. Going in the theme of an old book. Age the edges a little bit. Using an ink pad and just going over like that. So it depends what your personal tastes are. I personally love that. I think it's really nice. Now, if you want to put this into a bookshelf as a secret book so that nobody knows there's something special hidden in there, then I wouldn't put anything on the front. But if you're going to use it for display or just on its own, you could add a little bit of embellishment to the front too. So I'm going to pick a nice busy piece of music. That way up. Rip out a rough square. Like that. Ink it. Glue on a piece of lace. So up with some more glue stick. Ew, this glue stick is really squidgy. Don't know what's happened to it. Like that. Bring it around the edge. I think I'll go all the way around, and that way then it'll look neat inside as well. Shut my book. And then I'm going to glue this into place. There. And I got this sheet of labels. You get these in Dollar Tree, pound shops, places like that. Hobby Lobby, I would imagine too. Or you can cut it out with your Cricut, or you can just cut it out of a book if you want to. These are ready printed on stickers. It says craft. And I'm going to put that there. And then I think because it's not going in a bookshelf, it's more for display. I'm going to get a button. I do love a button. Got this little tub of pretty embellishments here. Let's see what I've got. Oh, I do love this creative part of the process. Yes, I'm going to put that there. So a little blob of glue there. Pop my flower on. And then a little blob of glue. Oh dear. They were two flowers. Okay, so put that one down there. Another blob of glue. And then pop my button on. Like that. And then, can we do anything else? Got a little bow here. That's a bit too much, isn't it? Oh, I think I'll put something down here, because it works well quite often if you've got something at the top end there, to put something at the opposite diagonal end at the bottom. So, shall I put a button, or shall I put a pearl? I think I'll put a pearl. Ooh, look at that. And then you can just embellish and embellish as much as you want. And then you can keep things in here, like if I wanted to. I don't think it fit. There we go. I could keep my embellishments in there. Perfect size. And you can put in ribbons, laces, whatever you've got. You can put in some pieces of fabric. If you're collecting all your little scrap fabric ready to make a scrappy quilt, you can pop them in here. And all from an old book that nobody wanted and was just going off to be repulped and made into new paper. And now it's a fabulous little book. Look at that, with storage inside.